Mass shootings were rare in Yugoslavia. What happened in 1987 made huge impact on Yugoslav public. The society was going through a fragile period. Tito was dead and cracks between Yugoslav nations expanded. Communism in Europe was entering the final phase before the fall of Berlin Wall. Nationalism was on the rise in Yugoslavia. Totalitarian regime managed to keep everyone under control. But once the event started to roll, it was like avalanche. Paraćin massacre was only one incident in the saga. But it showed how one event can be interpreted very differently. What is Paraćin massacre? Paraćin is a town in Serbia. The massacre happened in JNA barracks. First, I have to explain what JNA was. JNA stands for Jugoslavenska Narodna Armija. English, Yugoslav People's Army. Yugoslavia had only federal army. Individual republics like Serbia didn't have their own armies. JNA had military compounds and barracks all over Yugoslavia. JNA's officers were professional soldiers. Recruits were civilians who had to serve in the army. According to Yugoslav laws, serving in the army was mandatory for all men over 18. In the beginning, recruits served 2 years in the army. This was later shortened to 1 year. Recruits weren't allowed to serve in their hometowns. They were often sent to different republics to serve in the military. Communists wanted to establish brotherhood in unity, which was official motto. Recruits had to live in the barracks and sleep in common dormitories with 20 beds. Recruits weren't allowed to choose the military branch where they were going to serve. People with mental and health problems were ineligible to serve in the army. Interesting fact, some lied about being homosexuals to avoid serving in the army. University students went to the army after they graduate or drop out. This is very important detail for our story. In recent years, JNA was often accused of being controlled by Serbs. This wasn't true. In 1981, 60% of JNA officers were Serbs. This also means that 40% were not Serbs. JNA was a communist army and communists were against nationalism. Army officers were deeply connected to Communist Party. Albanians made only 1.6% of officers but 9% of recruits. Was this evidence of their discrimination? Albanians would say yes, and Serbs would say no. Any Yugoslav citizen could attend military school and become a professional soldier. Yugoslavia didn't have segregation laws. Simply speaking, Albanians weren't interested in careers in the army. I have to point out that JNA didn't participate in any wars between 1945 and 1991. JNA did participate in UN peacekeeping missions, but this was very limited in size. In 1987, a huge majority of military personnel never experienced fighting. This is also important for our story. Now it's time to talk about the shooter. Asis Kelmendi was born in Lipljan province, Kosovo in 1967. He was Albanian. Albanians are majority in Kosovo. Serbia has 3 parts: Vojvodina, Central Serbia, and Kosovo. While attending high school, Kelmendi showed hatred towards socialism according to some sources. At the age of 16, he tried to escape to Albania. This is very bizarre detail considering that Albania was communist and more isolated than Yugoslavia. This could be proof of Kelmendi's mental instability. Or he had nothing against socialism and was against Yugoslavia. In this case, escaping to Albania would be a logical step. Kelmendi was caught and sentenced to 15 days in prison. He never went to prison because he showed good behavior. As far as we are aware, Kelmendi showed no criminal tendencies. In 1984, Kelmendi became member of Communist Party. Communist Party in Yugoslavia was very careful about their membership. Kelmendi had to have a clean record to be accepted into party. He would have been kicked out of the party if he showed any signs of disturbing behavior. Kelmendi went to study law at Pristina University. After only one semester, Kelmendi decided to go to the army and serve his mandatory 1 year. This is very strange. I would say something must have happened. Dropping out after only one semester was highly unusual. Students would repeat years several times or switch faculties. Kelmendi took and passed several exams, which makes his dropping out even stranger. Why was Kelmendi eager to serve in the army? Was he trying to escape from something? Kelmendi was accepted into UNA in September 1986. This means that he passed medical exams, including mental evaluations. He was sent to Leskovac for basic training. He was later transferred to Paraćin. Both Leskovac and Paraćin are towns in central Serbia. Paraćin is a small town with 25,000 people. Paraćin was known for a candy factory called Paraćinka. I remember watching commercials for Paraćinka Paraćin bubblegums. Paraćin is the last place I would imagine as a location of massacre. Kelmendi was supposed to be discharged from the army in September 1987. He had only a few more weeks to serve when he decided to kill people. This makes his crime even more perplexing. The massacre happened on 3rd September 1987. At 3 a.m., while most people were sleeping in the military barracks, Kelmendi took an automatic rifle. He asked one soldier where Safet Dudakovic was sleeping. Kelmendi shot and killed Dudakovic in his bed. He continued firing at the sleeping soldiers. Kelmendi killed 4 and wounded 5 soldiers. Then he left military barracks while chaos erupted around him. No one tried to stop him. Military police went after him and started searching the area. A local farmer and his wife found Kelmendi's dead body. Official version says he committed suicide. What was behind Kelmendi's crime? This tragedy sparked several theories. I would say it wasn't ethnic hatred because Kelmendi didn't target one specific ethnic group when he opened fire. He simply shot everyone. His 4 dead victims included 1 Serb, 2 Bosnian Muslims, and 1 Croat. Some sources say Kelmendi was mentally ill. But he passed tests to join UNA and he never showed signs of mental illness. He would have been discharged from the army if he had been diagnosed with mental illness. Some say Kelmendi had problems with fellow soldiers. He was short and thin, which would make him a target. Kelmendi was 167 centimeters tall, 5 feet 6 inches, and weighed 63 kilograms, 139 pounds. He was likely bullied in the army. Yugoslav men were expected to be tall and muscular. Bullying was always a problem in Yugoslav schools, in the army, and at work. One has to be mentally tough to live in the Balkans. If Kelmendi experienced severe bullying, he might have snapped. This is a very likely scenario. But was Kelmendi working alone? There were other Albanians in the barracks. Perhaps they convinced him to shoot or they helped him escape. It is suspicious that no one shot at Kelmendi during massacre. We are talking about military that had incredible amount of weapons. There were guards on duty. The situation was explained by negligence. Guards and others were sleeping on duty. Considering Kelmendi had an automatic rifle, he didn't need much time to commit massacre. A minute or 2 would be enough. Why did Kelmendi stop? His behavior could be explained by the fact Safet Dudakovic seemed to have been his primary target. Kelmendi made sure to kill Dudakovic. They were both Muslims, so religion wasn't reason for the crime. The witness who named Dudaković as primary target was also Muslim. This means that Serbs didn't invent Kelmendi's wish to kill Dudaković. Yugoslavia was shocked by the massacre. The fact that the shooter was Albanian made things much worse. During the 1980s, Albanians organized demonstrations in Yugoslavia. Ethnic tensions between Albanians and Serbs in Kosovo were boiling. Albanian politicians were talking about establishing Republic Kosovo. Serbs see Kosovo as medieval Serb heartland. Many Albanians see themselves as Balkan natives, and all other nations are labeled as newcomers. Based on their opinion, newcomers have no rights. Serbs came to the Balkans in 7th century AD and still are seen as newcomers. Due to the lack of historical sources, fringe historical theories are very popular among both Albanians and Serbs. In 1987, Serbian newspapers turned against Albanians. Some newspapers claimed that Kelmendi was Albanian separatist. Serbian newspapers Vreme, English Time, wrote how Kelmendi shot Yugoslavia. Some Albanian shops in Serbia were vandalized, though no one was killed. One of Kelmendi's victims, Srđan Simić, was buried in Belgrade. On his funeral, people were shouting anti-Albanian slogans and that Kosovo is Serbia. At the same time, Milošević was rising to power. Incidents like Paraćin massacre helped Milošević to gain more support. Serbs felt they needed protection, and Milošević offered them just that. Since Kelmendi was dead, there was no trial. Rumors persisted that Kelmendi was part of some Albanian separatist organization. We cannot exclude this completely because Kelmendi did try to escape to Albania. The fact is that Kelmendi died before internet and social networks ruled. We cannot easily confirm or disprove his beliefs. Is there any doubt that Kelmendi was the shooter? No, he was seen by several witnesses. But we cannot know for sure if he had accomplices. JNA wasn't famous for their transparency. It is possible that JNA kept information for themselves. The public was usually given only bits and pieces of information. I have to mention the case of Jožef Meneder. He was ethnic Hungarian, born in Serbia in 1974. In 1993, Meneder was serving in the army when he shot and killed 6 soldiers and 1 officer in Vranje, Serbia. Afterwards, Meneder killed himself. Press portrayed him as a member of satanic cult. Meneder's actions were explained by his Satanism. The curious fact is that both Kelmendi and Meneder were non-Serbs from autonomous provinces. Was Meneder inspired by Kelmendi? He might have been, since Kelmendi's crime was widely reported by the press. As far as we know, Kelmendi didn't leave any messages about his reasons for killing soldiers. Meneder's case was less shocking because of the timing. In 1993, there were 2 wars, hyperinflation, and international sanctions, while in 1987 Yugoslavia was a peaceful country with stable economy. What do I think? Based on available information, I would say Kelmendi had personal reasons to attack other soldiers. I think bullying is the most logical explanation. Otherwise, Kelmendi would have targeted Serbs or officers. Most of his dead and wounded victims were Bosnian Muslims. So this was an ethnic or racial crime. Kelmendi was member of Communist Party, which means this wasn't political crime. Though this might have been anti-Yugoslav crime. Kelmendi might have hated whole Yugoslavia. Or perhaps he didn't want to go back home. He did try to escape to Albania, and he joined the army out of the blue. The massacre happened only weeks before he was to be discharged. We don't know how bad the bullying in the army was. Most Albanians are very sensitive about their honor. Kelmendi might have believed he had to kill people because his honor was questioned. One rumor says that Kelmendi was accused of theft in the army. Being accused of theft is a serious stain on a person's name. This could have triggered Kelmendi to start shooting, especially if he was innocent. We might never learn the exact reason for Paraćin massacre. But this crime showed first glimpses how unprepared JNA really was. JNA was supposed to be among the strongest armies in the world. And I failed to catch Clemendi because the guards and officers were sleeping.